Welcome to another topical update from the Cayman Hurricane Center, and here's Adam with the details.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much indeed. Hello, everybody, and yes, this tropical update. We are busy and we are talking about two areas of interest. First area of interest is in the Caribbean Sea, Central Caribbean, just south of Jamaica. We have Invest 90L, and we also have Invest 99L out in the Central Atlantic. I will get to that in just a second. But for now, we will concentrate on 90L as it is the system already making impacts in the Caribbean and will continue to do so as it develops further. As you can see on our screen here, we have the satellite imagery for Invest 90L, and this system has indeed gotten itself a lot better organized. A lot of deep thunderstorms has been developing on this, and as you could see, especially in the recent images, this loop, we definitely have some banding that is developing here in this system. The outflow channels are good in just about all directions, and so this thing should ramp up pretty nicely over the next day or so. And again, this is already impacting areas, as you saw earlier before we started. Video from a friend of mine down in Jamaica. He is reporting the conditions in his area as this thing progresses. And again, the outer bands of this system is already starting to make impacts to the island of Jamaica. And as it goes through during the next day or so, conditions there will also continue to sort of deteriorate as we go forward. Also, some stormy conditions that is currently taking place over Haiti and parts of the Dominican Republic, and of course in parts of Colombia as well. So with this system here, it will be moving in a general west-northwest to northwesterly direction, and obviously the stronger the system becomes, the more northerly track it will take. The center of the system is located more or less generally within this area here. There are some suggestions that it may sort of relocate or adjust itself further into this area, more in agreement where the overall spin flow is at the present time, and that too may be concerning. So again, the overall track would be west-northwest to northwest, and will likely take it towards the northwestern Caribbean. Again, areas to be concerned about would be the island of Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, parts of Honduras, parts of Belize and the Yucatan also need to be concerned, as this may head towards that direction. Models are sort of leaning towards a more northerly track, and the European ensembles, which is generally on the more accurate spectrum of models, do take it that way, and I will show you exactly that here. This was earlier today, the European model and its ensembles, some of them, their ensembles, and this is provided by CFAN, and this marks out the European model and some of its ensembles. And as you can see, a general west-northwest and northwest track should generally take it within the vicinity of the Yucatan Channel or the Yucatan itself, and then onwards into the Gulf of Mexico. The concern is that the ocean heat content and sea surface temperatures in the area is very, very high, and as the system is actually moving a little bit slower at this point in time. Earlier, it was moving generally 15 or 20, around that range. Now it's kind of dropped down to the region of anywhere from 5, 10, maybe 15. But it's definitely slowed down quite a bit. And the slowing down has also helped with the system in developing and intensifying as well. So talking about the ocean heat content here for a second, and this is why I am indeed concerned about the system, and as well as 99L, and I'll explain a little bit further why that is. But just dealing with 90L at this point in time, as we look at the ocean heat content map here for the Caribbean. Just bringing it up here. Excuse me a sec. Here. I don't know. Come on. There we go. Okay, so here is the ocean heat content. And again, our system is more or less located right in this region here. Or should I mark it out here in this color? Yeah, so it's more or less in here. And again, it continues more of a west-northwest to maybe northwest track, and getting into this very high ocean heat content. The worry is that this thing could potentially ramp up. And not only the fact that we may indeed be seeing a tropical storm within this area, that we could potentially be looking at a possible hurricane, but definitely as we go further northwest into the Gulf of Mexico, there is general agreement that we could very well be looking at a hurricane for the Gulf of Mexico. And if this does indeed become as such, that would be the first hurricane of the 2017 season. So that is the concerns here, and just going further into saying that impacts to Jamaica, as this would be the place being impacted over the next day or so. We're talking about some heavy rainfall at times, some gusty winds, and providing on how quickly this does get up to tropical storm and onwards. May even see tropical storm conditions in some areas there. Definitely, though, main concern would be the rainfall, and also there offshore, there is small craft warnings in effect for Jamaica, and boaters should more or less stay off the waters over the next couple of days, as the seas will be quite rough. And again, as this thing continues and the rainfall threat would become higher, there is also the threat for flooding in some areas, and I could say that the flooding may be an issue, especially around rivers and low-lying areas and valleys, or down in the gullies, would be for some extra flooding that may occur across there. And then again, as it moves further to the west-northwest or northwest, the Cayman Islands would be next in target, as well as Honduras, just depending on how far to the south the track is or how far north the track is. The impacts will be greater in either direction. But anyway, for that system, National Hurricane Center is giving it a high 70% chance of developing in the next 5 days. And a Hurricane Hunter aircraft will be flying into the system tomorrow to get a better idea of the intensity and how well organized the system is going to be as we go forward. So then again, moving on from that point there, we have Invest 99. Now, Invest 99L is not as impressive as 90L. There is some thunderstorms in and around the area. It is a broad area of low pressure. The low pressure area is quite sort of elongated. The main area of vorticity is located down here within this region here, but the overall vorticity area is sort of elongated as so. This bit of the vorticity here is weakening out, and it will likely be that this should make its way into the main area of vorticity, which is located in and around here, as this would continue off towards the west, maybe a little off towards the west-northwest as well. There are some thunderstorms that are starting to fire off in this system, so that is one of the factors that will help with the development of this system. And again, I have stated earlier that I am concerned about how this system will play out with the Ocean E content as in the Caribbean, and I'll explain to you why. And here we go with the forecast models for Invest 99. And as time went forward, the forecast models, the forecast guidance has been shifting further and further and further to the south, making the threat more for the Caribbean area rather than out in the Atlantic or out in the Bahamas or up the East Coast. I do know that there's been a lot of chatter over the past week or so of people showing the very long range extended models showing a massive Cat 5 hurricane or a major hurricane heading up to the Carolinas or the East Coast. And there's one of the reasons that we tend not to look at the models so far out is because models do change over time. And by doing as such, it rather gives more harm than good, because it scares people and thinking, oh, this has happened, that happened. And of course, models do change over time. And again, as shown here, models have changed. So again, here's the models, and it's forecasting a general west to west-northwest track. As such, takes it in towards the Caribbean. And so we're looking at possibly a impacting tropical storm, maybe even a weak hurricane or so, depending on how conditions play out going forward. Could be seeing that system making a landfall or impact here in the Eastern Caribbean, likely impacting islands such as Martinique, Dominica, and Guadeloupe. Could impact as far south as St. Lucia. This system is quite large in size, so the impact would probably be felt through a good portion of the islands. May not be directly tropical storm or hurricane, whatever strength, but more rainfall and maybe a couple of gusty winds or so. But anyway, impacts definitely along here. And then it seems quite likely or so that may pass south of Puerto Rico, may pass along the southern coast of Hispaniola or either over Hispaniola and then continue on. And again, further south of track are, impacts, again, Jamaica, possibly somewhere within the Northwest Caribbean, and then the Gulf of Mexico. So, hey, how we've changed from the East Coast to now possibly the Gulf of Mexico. So again, things do change. We'll watch it closely as time goes forward. I do think that it will be quite a concern for the Eastern Caribbean, say, come about 4 days or so from now. National Hurricane Center is giving it a 50% chance of developing. It has struggled a bit from it came off of Africa, and as I've mentioned on other social media platforms, that a lot of people were looking at the earlier models and they were showing this thing ramping up pretty quickly and ending up at pretty much by this time now having a quite a strong tropical storm out in the central Atlantic, moving at a west northwest to northwest direction out in towards the more open central Atlantic. And I said, guys, it's probably not going to do that because one, this system is very large, and large systems tend to take longer to spin up. They tend to, because you're moving a large area of energy, it takes longer to get these things spun up. Being favorable, it's not perfect, and as such, there are some issues. Yes, even though Saharan dust is fairly off to the north, it does curve a little bit down into here. There is dust to the west of it, but it is relatively light and not really much an issue, especially with this big giant moisture field that is 99L. But it does have a little bit of an impediment. And the other thing with that is that this is along the monsoon tropical intertropical convergence zone. It will need to pull out of that for it to really pick up any sort of decent intensity. So that will need to pull off, and that again will take a little bit of a while. And of course, up-level conditions was as it gets towards this region here. It's not so as light as it was earlier. There is a little bit of sharing coming across, and especially with the up-level anticyclone, which is supporting Invest 90. The up-level winds are kind of coming across here towards the west, across here. And they're not too terribly strong. It's not as much as say that this would kill it, but it will definitely sort of impede some of that development. But would think that the up-level anticyclone with this would at least keep it from getting too shared and allow it to not continue on further. Then again, as it gets further into this region, providing that land interaction is not as much, the shear should lighten up in the area and allow this thing to push on forward. And again, as mentioned, with that ocean heat content in the region, if this starts tapping into that, we could be looking at a potential serious situation within that area marked out there in the northwestern Caribbean. And the time frame for that would be pretty much 5 to 6 days around here, 7+ days for around this area. So again, we got a week to watch with that system. Our main concern at the moment is 90L here. We'll worry more about this over the coming days as that works its way closer to the Caribbean. So that is it for this update on both 90 and 99L. I'll be back a little later tonight with another update on these systems, especially for 90L going forward, and also to mention that we would be looking at a possible live streaming event coming up with the system 90L or whatever it becomes over the next day or two. I will put out more messages through Facebook and also on the YouTube channel about when that would take place. Also, look out for some openings in other new social media platforms as well. I'll give more details on that later on. This is it for me, Adam McDoom, here in Grand Cayman at the Cayman Hurricane Center. See you later.